All right, we are live. Hey there, everybody. So glad you could join us. Tune in. Tonight it's another round of Mando Time. So we're going to be having a hearty swig and then we're going to dive right in. Um, Last time, when last we left our heroes, they had just cut up the majority of the Mandalorian parts. They had cut out the 2mm pieces and they had started sort of gluing things together. But now we have, as you can see, made it a lot further. I've got really good footage of all these details and all this work that went into making this go from a bunch of 2D pieces on the workbench to a full glued together piece. It's looking really nice. I'm really especially quite proud of the detail on the ears and along the ridge here because that was all burned in with my soldering iron. For those of you who don't know, you can use a wood burner on foam fairly effectively, but I use a variable temperature soldering iron because it is great. It gives you a lot of control over your grooves and your burning, which is so nice when you're trying to achieve some very clean lines. And we got all those 2mm pieces in there, and of course on the sides here. This thing's looking great. So now we're going to start moving on to more parts of the armor. I thought we could start tonight with some work on the shoulder pieces. I've got all the pieces for the forearms and the bracers, the chest there, and I've got shins and stuff as well. So I thought we could just start with the shoulder. I thought that would be really fun. I basically condensed the shoulder into two pattern pieces from this. I've got two halves of the shoulder, which will meet in the center, and will get covered by this piece. And then there are pieces that get layered on top of that. And so basically what we're going to do is we're going to have 4 of these, flipping as we go, 2 of these, and then we're going to cut this apart into even more pieces so that we can do all the varying raised layers. So let's dive right in. I did actually think about doing 2 halves and using these square dowels from Michaels. I thought, square foam dowels, it's very clean and sharp. That could be very, very pretty. But it actually turned out that this is very, very hard to shape on the whole and get it to retain that shape. Good evening, Melvin. Hope you like it, what you're seeing. So I kind of abandoned that. So we're gonna just abandon this. So over here. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna sweep all these cutting implements to the side. We're gonna pull out some foam. This is 6mm HD foam we're working with today. I don't need the whole roll to start the shoulders. We'll see how far we get tonight. I was thinking we might be able to get into the bracers a little bit, but we'll see how far we want to get with these shoulder pieces. Let's go ahead and reach all the way over here for a Sharpie. I'm just going to trace these out real quick onto the foam. Like I said, it's going to be 4 pieces across this whole thing. And actually, I'm going to take one moment and go like this and make some tick marks to help me line everything up as I go along. That's one thing. I do tend to add tick marks to my pep patterns usually, but if I don't, it's pretty easy to just make a nice line as reference for yourself across your pattern and onto the foam in such a way that, you're not guessing later on. You know exactly where the last line was because it's right there on the pattern. All right. Let's see here. That's 1. This Sharpie's starting to give out. Let's see, 2 here. Got a second piece. And these are just going to be cut straight on, so we don't need to worry about it. Any of the fit or nothing. You know what? I'm going to trade this dinky little Sharpie for a king-size Sharpie because this thing doesn't tend to run out of ink quite as fast. There we go. Being careful to honor all my detail lines, make sure I'm not missing any stuff. And then we're going to flip it over for another 2 pieces. Trying to conserve as much foam as I can because, you know, waste isn't cool. We try to be... This is a really... Not a wasteful hobby so much as just a very consumptive hobby and a very consumptive craft, as are most effects-based industries. So it's just worth noting that anywhere you can at least be mindful about limiting scrap, you know, you're doing a good thing. You're doing the right thing, frankly. Go. I try to be conscious of it in the shop. You'll note I keep my garbage bin, my scraps bin at least, right here, and I'll reach into it all the time just to pull out small pieces for me to be using. There we go, just making sure I'm transferring those tick marks onto the inside of the face. So they're just left behind here, you know, what's the point? Why do we even do it? Gosh, I'm so happy to be crafting in the shop today. It's been a very busy week, but we've gotten a lot done. We've really ramped up commissions for the holiday season, and that has been a joy, for sure. But anytime work ramps up, you know, work ramps up. So it's been busy. Whew, here we go. Okay. Good news is about these 2 pieces at least. They're not terribly complicated. The fun thing I think about Mando's armor is that it's not super complicated. Well, the van braces, his gauntlets, are extremely complicated, and I'm very excited to get into those. But, you know, overall, the armor isn't terribly complicated. It's got very intense geometric shapes. But that's kind of what makes it cool. It's so pretty, it's so shiny for having such intense geometric shapes. Okay, let's go ahead. I'm going to line these up here. We're just going to make 2 of them. Two big rectangles. You know, actually, take it back. I don't think I want to make the rectangles out of this thickness because I think it has to be pretty like even thicker than that. So let me see if I have enough scrap 8mm to do this. In the meantime, let's just rough cut these parts off of the main roll so that we don't have to keep working on it. There we go. Go, come on. You can do it. There we go. Sometimes you just gotta encourage yourself. Alright, I'm gonna set this over here. Let's sharpen up, and we'll just, you know, we'll start assembling this sort of as we go here. It's not a style of crafting I'm as accustomed to, just sort of putting everything together as we go. I'm definitely kind of a cut everything out, detail everything, glue everything together, sand kind of guy, but you know, sometimes we're working, and we're working a little on the fly, especially after having made as many mock-ups of these pieces as I have. I think it's worth noting that I might have picked something up on the other ones, frankly. Alright, let's go ahead. It's very important that I cut all of this at a pretty nice 90-degree edge so that as I layer things up, they don't sort of wibble on the sides. I'm still going to need to do a little bit of filling, but hopefully it'll just be more of a light sand, and then just any small errors I can fix with filling. There we go. The one thing I don't have a pattern for yet, because I'm basically going to just take a line art drawing of it and add it on is the crest that Mando gets. Spoiler alert for anybody who's still, you know, not through season 1 and just, I guess, waiting for season 2 to end to start season 1. But Mando gets a oh god, what's it called? A mudhorn crest on one of his shoulders, and I don't actually have a pattern for that yet. I just have a pattern for the shoulders, because the shoulders are identical, save for that. So I'm gonna have to add that on once I've got the shoulders assembled. I will say this is, I think, the cleanest method for doing it, which is essentially to build a base layer and then just glue everything to it. I've seen some people do some pretty gnarly builds where they like do the outer edges and then glue a piece into it to make it domed, and I think that's a lot more wood and give in my build than I'd really like. For those of you just joining, we are working on Mandalorian's Beskar armor. We are working on the shoulder here on the bench. These are original templates that I have worked up for this commission. So we're giving them the right go of it, frankly. I will be releasing these templates. I'm gonna go ahead and release. When will I do the Mandalorian helmet video? I'm hoping to do a video on this helmet very soon, but I am going to release the templates to my patrons tonight, in the hopes that this helmet is kind of the subject of probably my next video. I really, really like the shape of this. I was able to cut down on parts a lot, and I used what I learned on my Captain Rex helmet build, and I used the lateral darts on the top of the dome. And I was able to remove any dart between, any edge between the bottom of the helmet and the dome of it in that way. This is a very clean template. It's very easy to put together. So we're going to be talking more about this probably throughout the night, because it sort of relates to how I've done all of these things. You know, at worst, some of these are just, you know, layering on top of, like, the shoulder pieces. But frankly, at best, they are templates, I feel, that really lean into what makes foam great. Not just an amalgamation of, oh, I put a dome template on a tube template and I made it Mandalorian. And huge thanks to Renowolf. Renowolf put together this 3D model for the, not for the shoulder here, this is something I've kind of worked up. But for the helmet, especially, Renowolf did a great job with that model. I only had to do a little bit of editing to get it to the kind of shape that lends itself really, really well to foam. So I have a lot of thanks for him and his work here. And that's the thing here, is that, you know, some of these things are completely original. I take a lot of time to work them out, like the shoulders, a lot of the armor pieces. Some of these pieces are, you know, I stand on the shoulders of giants. I really do. There's a lot of really talented modelers and sculptors out there who release their work for free, and part of what I do really just builds on their work. And when I do it that way, those things are gifted back to the community again. This helmet template is going to be free at some point here for you guys, because on some level it was free to me, and I think that that's, dare I say, a little magical. Dare I say, just a little bit in the Christmas spirit. Now, so I've got the two sides of the shoulders, and this will sort of curve together properly when I'm done. I think I will need to cut out the other pieces before I start assembling it, regrettably. So let's pull some thicker foam for this. I did think about making this part out of floor mat, but then I'd have to do a bunch of sanding. So I don't think I'm going to do that. I think instead we're going to dig through the bin here. And dig through the bin, see what we've got. Man, slim pickings for thicker foam. Let's see. Okay, well, we may have to do some fun layering tricks then. Because like I said, these rectangles are just a little. They're not quite what we need. So there's an order to this. Then we are going to layer some foam together when we start gluing things. But before we do that, I am going to cut out just a little bit more from the 6mm. We're going to cut up what's on the template here. We're going to cut up the upper ridge and the lower ridge. And that will all get cut out of 6mm foam. Then onto that, I will layer a piece of 2mm foam on just the top part of it. And that way you'll have a nice sort of step up going around that edge. It'll be a nice, soft, subtle detail. It'll be really sharp, frankly. I don't mean to toot my own horn here, but this is going to be very sharp. And that's really the goal. The goal is to make something that's really just so clean. It's above, like, reproach as a foam piece. It's so tight, the corners. And that's what we want. So, I'm going to cut out 4 of these as well from the 6mm foam. And then I'm going to need to layer up some foam to achieve a thickness that I think is correct for this build. Because I could, like I said, I could use like a floor mat, but I don't think that will be advantageous in the long run. I think that'll be very messy. Messy. Here we go. Oh, I am so excited for the finale tomorrow. My fiance and I watch that show religiously, and we have just been over the moon for this season. It's so cool. I don't know. Are you guys fans? Do you just like the aesthetic? Let me know. Like, that's fair. I know people who are just super into props. Like this Pep Tuesday heavily featured, you know, Halo Infinite, and I can't say I'm a massive fan of the Halo games, but the aesthetic is gorgeous. They do a great job. And I think that's important too, and it's super cool. So why not celebrate it? But I'm a big fan of The Mandalorian. I think the show is just super cool on top of everything else. I love that Jon Favreau and the people who write for The Mandalorian in general are not afraid of the things that make Star Wars really, really quite exciting. I love... One of the things that I think gets glossed over a lot when people talk about Star Wars is how humanocentric the Star Wars universe is. And I don't mean that, you know, in a weird way. Like, I play a lot of D&D. I do a lot of DMing. And one of the things that I do in my world, as I specify to my players, is that I run a humanocentric game, which means that, generally speaking, the like varied races of the game, you know, like dragon people and whatnot, are a little more rare. You know, magic's kind of dying out. They're a little more rare, and so they're a little odder, and they tend to have some reproach. And so one of the things I think that breeds is an interesting dynamic of, you know, how do systems and societies deal with people that are slightly different than themselves. And one of the things that I love about The Mandalorian is how many different and varied creatures and races we're seeing, where they're really just kind of diving in deep onto the end of, like, the people that the Empire especially looked down on and didn't want to service and actively tried to stomp out. And that's this is some big time concepts, and it's really handled quite well. Okay, let's see. Bob. Okay, here's the 4th one here. I think I might snug it up against the wall. the wall, the edge of this piece here. I'm trying to, again, preserve as much foam as I can here. There's a bit of waste in there. It's just kind of unavoidable because of the project we're doing. See, if I was tracing out every single one of these pieces all at once, I could probably save a little more space, but it'd also be so blindingly complex and difficult to understand that it almost wouldn't be worth it, because I'd probably end up retracing and recutting as many pieces as space that I wound up saving. So, okay, so now that I've got that, I'm gonna rough cut these pieces out real quick. Come on, there we go. There we go. And then we're gonna grab some 2mm, because we're gonna cut the top edge here off of this piece and create an additional layer for the top edge on both sides. Let's see here, what do we got? Here, this piece is perfectly sized. I will not need to cut down this piece like I had to cut down everything else. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, one thing that I'm really excited about trying to do an entire Beskar suit is the prospect of not only doing the armor, but doing some of the pieces that I think don't get as much love. Like, Mando still has a very normal shin guard. It's not Beskar. It's still like that painted Durasteel. So I'm really excited to do that piece. I'm really excited to do some of the belts and the leather strapping. That's going to be part of this commission build too. So very excited about that. And we're going to need 2 more the other direction. If anybody has any questions about what I'm doing, please feel free to drop that in the chat. We had a great time last week. Had some very fun conversations about crafting, especially in the United States here. There's a lot going on, so it was very fun to connect with some people and other crafters. Go. All right, and these we'll also rough cut out real quick. Cutting 2mm foam, I think, is an art unto itself, because it's so easy to accidentally stretch your pieces in a way that will just ruin the overall shape of your build. So, I mean, if you're like me and you work in 2mm for little fine details, I mean, hat tip to you. It's very difficult. All right. Let's finish. I'm going to cut out the 2mm pieces, and then I'm going to cut out the 6mm pieces. Then we're going to start gluing everything together, and while we do that, I'm also going to glue several layers of some foam together to do the thick ridge right here. Because it wouldn't be appropriate for me to just make it out of 6mm, or even just 6mm with a 2mm strip on it, because it is significantly thicker than the rest of the piece. But not quite so thick that, again, this on a layer is appropriate. I think that's too much. I think that's too much still. Some of that's a judgment call. I could probably measure exactly, but we're using the thickness of our material to guide us in a meaningful way, so we'll be doing it that way. That's one thing I think is important to remember when you're talking about foam building. Sorry I chatter a lot. This is fun for me, I think, from a philosophy of the build sort of standpoint. Foam is a sheet material ultimately, and the way you build with a sheet material is going to be different from other styles of construction. Because I wouldn't start with this and start, rolling and molding it and shaping it like clay. I'd pull out clay. I can pull out foam clay to do that, but I don't start my build this way. with a sheet material. I start with other pieces first. I think that'll be okay. I kind of want to... No, I think that'll be all right. Sorry, I cut that a little wide, and I think it's going to be okay. Just because of the way you glue it down. And of course, I'm gonna clean this up with my rotary tool anyways. So, it's not that big a deal. There we go. How do you do to simplify templates in Pepakura, and which do you use, Pepakura Designer or Pepakura Viewer? Great question, Juan. So the way I use Pepakura, first off, I will just say for anybody looking to learn more about Pepakura, I love answering these questions because it's my preferred method of building. It really is. We also run a live stream every Tuesday where I unfold things live. Like I said, this Tuesday I unfolded a Master Chief helmet from Halo Infinite. There's free templates for that, by the way. So if you want to check out that video in the description, there's links to those free templates. Dive right in. But I use Pepakura Designer. Pepakura Designer is a free program. You don't get the option to save with the free version, but you can export your templates into PDFs. So if you don't feel like you need the 3D reference to your models, and you don't necessarily want to share the full .pdo files, it's totally free, and that's fine. If you're like me and you use it all the time, you save your files and you share them a lot, you're going to need a code. It's $38, but it's a one-time license fee. So if you're at all interested in it, it's just $38. It's not a recurring thing like Adobe where it's every month or something like that. It's $38 and it's yours for life. That said, I will be giving away a free code coming up here. This coming Wednesday, we're going to be announcing the winner of our 500 subscriber giveaway. If you still want to get in on that, we have we have a video up. It's our 500 subscriber giveaway. It's a really big deal for us. We're like halfway to 1,000. Actually, we're almost to 600 right now, which is frankly incredible. Yeah. Oh no, I'm definitely gonna do that Halo Infinite helmet at some point here. It's a beautiful helmet. And even though I am not myself a huge Halo fan, I'm a massive fan of the aesthetics. But Pepakura is a great program. I use Pepakura Designer, and I use it in a very particular way, which is I even out a lot of the smaller cuts, and then I use the 2D tool, Join Adjacent Edges, which allows you to remove smaller cuts in your patterns to a specified tolerance of up to 10 millimeters. A centimeter, for those of you non-Americans out there who, for those of you Americans out there who don't know the metric stuffs. And so what that lets me do is overly simplify these patterns, taking these 3D shapes and sort of mashing them down. One of these days I'm gonna do the beach ball experiment. The beach ball experiment is one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite lessons in topology, which is essentially, it's actually something that's brought up a lot in map making. For any of you, I do a lot of all weird niche craft and creative things. A lot of them are like pursuant to being a DM, but map making and cartography talk about projections a lot, and projections are something that you have to use inherently because, laying a sphere flat isn't perfect, and laying the things on that sphere flat isn't perfect either, and so you're going to have to make concessions in some way or another because you have to represent a 3D thing in the 2D. And I think that's really important for understanding what Pepakura does, and largely what it means when we make templates of a 3D thing. What it means to make 2D templates of a 3D object. Yeah, no, I'll probably be making the Master Chief helmet pretty soon here. It's a really detailed helmet. I actually have another. So I've done Master Chief's helmet twice on Pepakura Tuesday. Once I want to say it was the Mark IV Mjolnir helmet, and most recently it was whatever mark it's going to be for Halo Infinite. I don't claim to know that. But it's a super cool helmet. Whoa, hello. It's a super cool helmet, and I really love the aesthetic of it. So I'll definitely be working on that sooner rather than later. Plus, it's worth noting that all these builds, eventually find their way to new homes. I have an Etsy store. I want to say there's a link to my Etsy store down below. It's where I sell a lot of these builds. So if you're at all interested in picking one of these up for yourself, please, by all means. It's an easy way to help support the channel if it's also something that you've been looking for. There we go. I gotta be like slightly less chatty. I gotta multitask here. I actually have to finish at least the shoulders tonight. Here we go. Yeah, no, I'm a big fan. I've actually wanted to do more than just helmets lately. I've been trying to find a good build. This has been really fun for me because, like I said, I do a lot of helmets. So it's been fun to work on like a full suit, working on pieces of the armor as well, not just an admittedly very clean Mando helmet. But I really like getting to do the nitty-gritty of, what does it take to make a whole costume happen. For those of you who don't know, I did graduate from college last year. I graduated with a degree in theater with an emphasis in stage acting as well as costuming. So I do a lot of costuming. I've done a lot of costuming. What is the Jirohane? Oh, now I gotta look at this. I don't know what that was. Jiro. What? What is this? Oh, you didn't say Captain America. You just said Captain. Ha! What is this? This is Halo. This is Halo 3. Captain. Oh, interesting. It's got kind of a Lord of the Rings vibe to it. It's got kind of an Urukai vibe to it. That's a very interesting helmet. Weird. Okay. I don't know. I could see myself making something like that. It's just nice to sort of branch out and do some of the nitty-gritty of an entire costume. Like I said, I used to make costumes for productions. I would make whole pieces. I'd make, very elaborate props and stuff like that. And so it's fun to be able to work on an entire cosplay and not just the really cool helmets. Although I will say, if you're going to display anything, for most things, you're absolutely right, Landon. It does look cool. But for most things, I will say, if you're going to display something from them, it's going to be a helmet. It's going to be a helmet. Like, what else is it going to be? Like, even for Captain America, in my mind, it's a toss-up between displaying, say, a shield or his helmet, because it's just so cool. And the A. Get the A. 1. Is it necessary to use EVA rubber? Can't you use cardboard? Now, this is a really important point. The reason it's important for my patterns, at least, and the way I make patterns, to use foam, it's worth noting that this isn't foam rubber. This is foam with an EVA Zoa additive. That's why some people call it EVA foam, although I do think it's very, very amusing that people call it EVA foam, even though EVA does not stand for anything. It's ebazoate. Just my 2 cents. It's worth using foam because foam can form compound curves. What do I mean by this? If I were to take this piece of paper for my pattern, and I bend it this way, it will bend this way. Or if I bend it that way, it will bend that way. But if I try to bend it in both ways at once, it will start to wrinkle and curl funny, and it doesn't want to do it. And you'll note I just end up with a flat face on top. And that is very much what will happen if you try to use another style of paper product, something that doesn't bend in the middle like this, something that won't curve in 2 directions at once, like foam. Cardboard will do this. Cardboard will just flatten out funny. Now, you could say, do a style of paper mache that I have seen that's very, very successful, where you basically wet cardboard down until it just sort of bends and forms, you know, like a foam. And there's nothing wrong with doing something like that. Cardboard's cheap, it's abundant, it's easy to recycle. You know, we talked a lot about not being wasteful tonight. Hell, if you don't want to be wasteful, cardboard. Tons of people build Pepakura models with cardboard. It's worth noting. But the way I do my templates is a little counterintuitive for cardboard. I'll say that. But it's also worth noting that if you're looking for a cheap material, foam is it. I've talked a little bit before I moved on to, you know, things like HD foam or the rolls that you can buy at a lot of craft stores. I worked in these foam floor mats, and they cut pretty well. They're not quite the same level of quality, but you can finish them up that way. And these things are super cheap. I used to be able to get a pack of like 6 of these for like $12 USD, and that's super cheap in my book. And I think that the versatility of the material ultimately for me is at least worth $12 for six sheets of that stuff. There we go. Then endurance. Yeah, that's totally fair. People who do cardboard builds tend to build static, like very durable builds. And I would say that foam is also quite durable, but it's durable for different reasons. It's durable because if you knock it against something, you know, it's going to flex a little bit, and if it wrinkles, you know, you can just heat it up gently and those wrinkles will disappear. Whereas cardboard, you know, you can resin it, you can Bondo and fill it. But if you drop it and it's, you know, it's a bad fall, you know, you're going to have to end up doing all that filling and painting again. So, I mean, it's a toss-up. I do know that there are products for foam to make it super rigid and super hard. I am philosophically opposed to those products because I think, again, part of what makes foam really effective as a building material is its flexibility and its lightweight nature. And if you just start adding more and more chemicals to it to make it, like a resin prop, I think at that point might be time to think about just making a resin prop. And there's nothing wrong with that. Finding foam for each uses. Cost effective versus high quality, for example. This is something I talk a lot about, and I think you might be right. I've actually been thinking about doing a video about the differences between what I mean when I say things like craft foam versus what I might mean when I say things like cosplay foam, or even in this context what HD foam actually is. I know that Cullen Cosplay a while back did an interesting video just called What is EVA Foam? And I love that video for a ton of different reasons. But I think my favorite is because he genuinely asks what is EVA foam, because if you just go to like a technical engineer and say, I need EVA foam, they will look at you like you're insane. You're insane like that, because that's just not something that people say outside of the crafting world. And so, you have to start looking at and examining what do I actually mean when I say EVA foam. Hold on a second. This hot not hot glue, this super glue is stuck shut. There we go. I think I got it. Let's see. Do we have super glue? Let's get a scrap piece. Yes, we've got super glue. Sweet. I tend to use gel controlled super glue. This is not a product review. This is just kind of what I use because I think it has a slightly stronger working time. Okay, we are going to use super glue to layer these 2mm pieces onto the top of these 6mm overlays. So I'm going to stick some 2mm inside of this. I'm going to use a scrap piece to kind of even this out. And try really, really, really hard not to just get super glue on my fingers. I will probably fail. Damn if I won't try. Alright, here we go. We're just going to layer this right on top of the 6mm piece right there. Just like that. You know, after doing one of these with... No, hot glue is not bad. Hot glue is great for lots of things. The reason I'm using super glue right now is because this is fast. You know, it's fast, and this will be a lasting bond. But it's worth noting... Yeah, reach all the way off screen here. It's worth noting a ton of this build is made with hot glue. There's hot glue on the inside of this. There's hot glue holding pieces together. There's hot glue holding the blades together. Just poured inside of the end here. Hot glue's great. Do a live teaching to make templates. Oh gosh, that sounds fun. Maybe I devote a Pep Tuesday to just not Pep. what to do like when Pep fails you and you've got to just make a template. I should do that. I don't know. Probably not next week. I think next week... It's Christmas. I'm celebrating Christmas. So next week, some of my lives, I'm probably not going to do. I might do a Tuesday live stream. I'm going to do a small video, you know, announcing a winner for the giveaway. But that's about all I'm going to be doing. I'm not going to be doing a ton of stuff. But maybe the week after that. Maybe the week after that I do a templating video where we just talk about templating. That could be very exciting. Sorry, but going back to your point, Landon, hot glue is not bad. Hot glue is just hot glue, you know? Sometimes I like doing things where I'm, you know, going very fast, and hot glue takes time to dry, so I don't have time to use a ton of hot glue. But maybe I need a glue that has a lot of body to it, so hot glue is a great option. You know, maybe I want a bond to be really flexible after the fact, so I don't want to use hot glue. Or maybe I want a bond to be super rigid after the fact, and, you know, a little bit of flex with the foam, but I want it ultimately to hold a shape. Hot glue's perfect. It's all about just knowing what it is you need your adhesive to do. I am actually going to switch from using super glue, though, because I'm feeling like I don't have enough in that little tube. So I'm just going to switch straight to contact cement, because we are going to need to use contact cement at some point. This is my preferred construction glue in general. The only problem is that it is it's got quite a smell to it. Fortunately, in my shop, I have a fair amount of ventilation, which is great because this stuff stinks to high heaven. It is also a flammable material, so, you know, bear that in mind. Be careful with your stuffs. But it's great for foam building. It is worth noting that unlike some adhesives where you just apply a layer and maybe let it sit for a minute and then glue everything together, contact cement, you have to apply a layer to both things, and I tend to apply 2 layers just for safety, because I like to ensure that I have these strong, lasting bonds. The one thing I cannot, the one thing I can say about my builds is they don't have a tendency to just fall apart over time. And that's something I'm quite proud of, frankly. And I do owe at least a portion of that to using contact cement. Plus, the other nice thing about contact cement, unlike hot glue, is even though it takes longer to apply than, say, super glue, once you touch the pieces together, they are more or less glued. You don't need to go back and glue them again, or you won't necessarily see the kind of thing where maybe hot glue wasn't quite dry, so it peels up a little bit. Same with, or you don't have to hold it together like super glue. You can just sort of be done with it there. All right, let's glue this on here. Perfect. There we go. And with that, the first layer is just sort of applied to all of these. I kind of like to let that sit. Usually I can speed it up with my heat gun, and I will do that in a minute. But actually, I'm just going to let this sort of dry for a moment while we figure out how thick we want to make this middle ridge, because this is generally the thickness of the one beneath it. We want it to be like that tall. So we are going to need to put together a fair amount of foam. I've just got some old craft sheets right here. I could probably glue a few of those together if I wanted. But even those together aren't that much thicker than this. That might be a waste of time. I think I'm just going to need to glue together like 3 layers of 6mm foam. That's just kind of what I'm going to end up doing here anyways. So and it's worth noting that I want to glue these together before I cut it out, because then all the sides will just be a very smooth cut, rather than, say, cutting 6 rectangles out and gluing them together loosely and having to sand it all together. That sounds like a waste of time to me, frankly. Okay, so I'm going to need to do that in just a moment. What's this? How do you get the 3D pieces of Pepakura? Buy them or download them? Some of my Pepakura models I buy, but I've never, for what it's worth, I never released a Pepakura model that I bought, because that would be shady as heck. Super shady. Also, it's worth noting that if you're just looking for a 3D model, search the internet. There's a lot of free 3D models out there that are super nice. And there's no reason not to use them. They're free to use, they're free to share. And there's a lot of really talented modelers out there. And then some I just make. I just make, like this shoulder model, I just roughed together in Blender. Blender's a free, a free 3D software. It's super easy to use. There's a lot of really great tutorials online about it if you're interested in it, like, of course, I am. So really don't be afraid to just find some 3D models. But Pepakura actually has a really great feature to it where the 405th has great models. So does just the replica prop forums in general. But if you're just looking for 3D models, not necessarily Pepakura models, because Pepakura has a great feature where you can take any STL, any .stl file, which are generally for 3D printing, from what I understand, and it will try to convert that into like a .obj style file, which is basically just a shell with the polygonal faces on it. And so if you're just looking for a 3D model, check sites like Yeggi, YEGGI. It's kind of a sketchy site, but what it essentially helps you search for 3D models all over the internet. And it'll link you to pages where there's free stuff. Thingiverse is great for 3D stuff, but their search features aren't as great, I'll say. It's a lot more loosey-goosey community style stuff, so it can be a little harder to try and find exactly what you're looking for. And that's just the way it is. I'm also a part of a group on Facebook, which is very much, I feel, not a group for socialization, but merely the logistics of trying to get 3D models. It's called Pepicura Library. It's got a massive depository of 3D files and Pepicura files, as well as a lot of enthusiasts. It's not a great place to go if you're looking for a lot of advice. I would argue it's also not a great place to go if you're looking to have your hand held and in the process of finding things, they're basically going to tell you to go find it yourself or find it in the file section. But it is a great resource. It's got a lot of models at its disposal. So those are some of the best places to find it. It is very expensive to do projects such as cosplay of EVA Rubber. I plan to make one of Captain Rex. Are you asking me if it is, or are you saying that it is? Because I would say that this is a fairly cheap hobby for what it is. Because if I wanted to go through and do a Rex cosplay and I was going to source like a 501st Rex cosplay and I wanted to get a really nice one, we're talking upwards of $5,000 to do a really nice one. Whereas I would say giving yourself enough leeway with extra material for mess ups, you could probably grind out your own Captain Rex out of foam, the whole suit. Certainly less than $1,000. I think it just depends on like what quality you're going for. I'm not knocking anything here. I'm just trying to be real and honest about the amount of money it takes to do full costumes. Because like my little brother did a really great Commander Bly costume, and it was really good. It was mostly foam, and I want to say he managed to put that together for like $300 in materials. Now he already had some tools, which is worth noting, but he basically, rather than trying to save himself time by outsourcing any of it, he decided to just do it all himself. Basically, he had very little help from me. Ultimately, I had a really great time just getting to kind of see him work on it, frankly. But he did so much work on it that I think because it's a hobby, that's appropriate. But if I was to say if I had valued that labor, I probably would have put the amount of money in the grands. So ultimately, I would say that building these things is a lot cheaper. It's just about where you're finding value in the work. I do think that making a Captain Rex costume is super attainable. It's super attainable. There's tons of free templates. The one thing I will say is don't get bamboozled into buying templates for certain cosplays, especially stormtroopers and clone troopers. There are so many free references out there. Hell, even just for the helmet, I have a free template for that I would consider fairly good. Not to toot my own horn, but it's so not worth it to buy templates for that in general. At most, I'd pay like $3 for something like that, which is incidentally what I sell the very few templates that I do sell. And that's not to disparage the work of artists who do take all the time to make templates. This is just a personal thing that I feel about templating, and you know, especially since all of this is DIY, all of this is coming out of like your pocket. It's coming out of my pocket. I don't believe in spending a ton of money on most templates. I either make what I need, or I can find it for free. I really can. All right, let's see here. So I got all of these glued together. I suppose... no, I'm going to leave those to sit for just a second. And I am going to layer some 6mm foam together. So actually this is great because I've got one of these rectangles here that I can sort of use as a wide guide for how much foam I need to layer together. Because the only thing that really matters here is that it's the foam piece that I'm cutting together is ultimately larger than the piece I'm actually cutting out. So if I just cut out 6 of these and glue them together, I should be just fine. Oh man, where has the time gone? We have just had a time on stream tonight. I think I might try to assemble one shoulder in the interest of trying to respect everybody's time here, most of all mine. So we're just gonna slather some contact cement on here. And I'm not super concerned about doing 2 coats of contact cement on these joins, because these joins aren't going to be under a lot of stress. They're basically just getting laminated together. So we can just do kind of one thick coat on each face that needs to get glued together. It's a pro tip for you. And while that first layer is drying, we can glue together one of the shoulder pieces. And to do that, we're also going to need to heat form it just a little bit. That is one thing. Have I ever made Doom props? Like, do you mean Dr. Doom or like the video game, like Doom Eternal? Oh, one, I don't know if it's better to buy a cosplay outright necessarily. I think that it's if you feel like you have the time and the drive to devote to doing hey Pandolce, if you have the time and the drive to dig on something, I mean, dig in on it. I wouldn't say it's better or worse to buy the thing outright. I think that it's just a cost. It's a cost to a thing and what you value. I mean, I know people who who don't. This is gonna sound harsh. I know people who don't really make things themselves. You know, I know people who just sort of, you know, pay people that they consider to be more talented at things than them to do the things that they want, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you've got the income to do that, do that. Hell, if I could outsource most of the stuff is there a special reason for my beard? What? Oh, do you mean like am I doing a cosplay? No, this isn't for a well, I guess there's a special reason for my beard. I have to wear a mask a lot at my job right now. And I was finding that I had a full mustache and the full chin beard. But I did not, it was not as comfortable for me. So I basically decided to go back to chops because I had at one point had my facial hair as chops, and I just sort of decided to go back to it. Okay. So now we got a pretty good curve in that. I curve this one too. The double barrel gun. Made you. Wait, hold on. I think we're getting our wires crossed. Landon, are you Wolverine style chops? Yeah, you're absolutely correct. I've definitely gotten that comment before. I had to stop. I used to just sort of pull my hair straight back, and I kind of had to stop because for whatever reason the colics of my hair sort of wing up, so it would do this sort of thing where it would sort of curl up and do a full-on Wolverine style thing, and I had to just kind of stop because I got made fun of a little bit for it. Here we go. Start gluing these two halves of the shoulder together. Here we go. Forgive me for getting a little quiet. It is now 8 o'clock, and I do actually kind of want to finish up on this. Ugh. Here we go. Get all those layers dried. Do maternal props or anything. I have never done a... Actually, okay, so that's not true. I have made a classic... I have a classic Doom pattern. It's a classic Doom Guy foam pattern helmet. I've never made it, but I do have it. That's one thing I should actually release to my patrons, because that thing turned out really, really nice. And it's kind of a complicated helmet, but it was really, really pretty. But I've never made any other props from it, even though those games with their slightly cartoony style really do lend themselves to foam in a great way. There we go. That's one of the two layers put together here. Let's go ahead and layer the next bit. Oh no. Gross, gross, gross. Sorry, this edge is not quite sticking together, so I've just got to stick my fingers in contact cement. Ah, gross. That's okay. We all make mistakes. But no, I've never actually built anything from them. I've just made patterns and toyed with the models before, because I think that's a really cool aesthetic. It's I'm probably gonna catch some fanboy flack for this, but like I actually think Doom and oh, John, sorry, I don't think I put it in the description yet. That's my problem. That's my fault. Here. One moment. Home Armory. Public templates. Here we go. Folder. Mandalorian helmet templates. Print to PDF. New. Let me just stop my live stream cold. Sorry. Here we go. Downloads. Where'd it go? Just had it. I swear it's real. It's a real template. There we go. I'm gonna say I have it. There we go. Get link. Copy link. And I'll just throw that in the description of the video real quick. Ta da da. Free templates. Oops. There we go. Now the free template should be in the description of this video. Ta-da! Sorry about that. Sorry about that, John F. Didn't mean to get you jebaited like that. I just completely biffed that. I was at work today, most of the day today, and I just tried to get on top of things. Yeah, the rest of these patterns are coming soon. The helmet's just the only one that I've completely finished, so I'm like, this pattern works very well. Sorry, but I was gonna say I feel like Doom and Halo have very similar aesthetics in many respects, and I like Halo props and templates, so there's no reason I don't like Doom. Here we go. Stick this together here, and then Fortune has granted me one because I traced the one rectangle. It's just on the top there now. That was an entirely unexpected thing. So we're just gonna do this like this. I need to reset my blade here. Come on. There we go. Jaden struggles with his blades for too long. There we go. I'm going to sharpen this up. And cut this across here. So we're going to cut this straight. We've just created a very thick piece of foam that is functionally just one piece, which is great for us, frankly. There we go. Cut that straight across. It's really important to have a very sharp blade for cuts like this. We can do this nice and evenly all the way across. There we go, and that's how you get a nice, very smooth, but thick chunk of foam. Oh my gosh. I'll glue this together using my tick marks. Just being sure to make sure that the whole thing is bonded all the way across. There we go. And that's the rough shape. That's the rough shape of this shoulder. Actually, I'm really, really happy with the way that looks. Because this could have been a little wonky, but this is actually very, very accurate. And that is gonna look great just right across this here. It'll probably need to be trimmed, but that is great thickness for this. And then when these things get glued on, that'll be fantastic. But oh, that's just brilliant. I think I'm out. I think I'm tapped out, guys. I'm going to be finishing up these shoulders very soon. By the next stream, for certain, we're going to have a lot more progress done on these. We're going to be finishing up most of these on live streams, so tune back in for more patterns, for more time. I do live streams every Tuesday, Pepicura. I try to release videos either every other Wednesday, every Wednesday. I want to give a huge thanks to my 7 patrons: Landon, Matt G, Dennis Pylon, Jennifer, Pan Dulce, K-Snake, Austin of AJ Plays Piano. Thank you all just so much for supporting me. I really appreciate it. Thanks to the awesome people who are commissioning me. If you yourself want to get something, my Etsy store is here. If you just want to support the channel, you can check us out on Patreon or at the links down below. I've got affiliate links. But for now, I have been Jaden. Thank you all so much for joining me. And, as always, take care.